Did you know that BDSM and Kink are healthy outlets for aggression, imagination, and attention? Hi, and welcome to The Partition, home of Kinky Wellness. My name is Dana Slosser, and I'm a sexual wellness coach that dives deep into all things kinky. I'm here to show how BDSM and Kink deserves a rightful spot within the sexual wellness conversation. So, let's talk about it. Hello, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking to you about AIA and why it's so important. AIA stands for aggression, imagination, and attention. And I believe you need each of these three qualities to enhance the quality of your life and progress in self-development. Aggression, imagination, and attention, or AIA for short, can be obtained through many avenues. But sometimes it's hard to find an outlet that can combine all three of them at the same time. Lucky for us, a healthy outlet to get all three can be found within BDSM and Kink. But let me tell you why AIA is so important. Starting with the first A stands for aggression. Finding a definition for aggression wasn't as easy as you may think. I found that social psychologists define aggression as behavior that is intended to harm another individual who does not wish to be harmed. But this definition causes a massive problem, because when we have definitions like this that require someone else to judge the intent, not everyone's views are the same. So ultimately, we are going to run into disagreements. What looks like aggression from one point of view may not look like that from another. Some think MMA is barbaric and shouldn't be televised or promoted, yet thousands of viewers tune in to major fights all over the world. But regardless of what aggression looks like, we all have it. Aggression is a natural human emotion. It actually protects us when we feel that we need to defend ourselves or that our boundaries are being pushed. Aggression is healthy when exercised correctly. And even beyond that, we need aggression for self-development. Aggression gives fuel to our self-ownership, courage, resilience, and assertiveness. Without these qualities that are driven by aggression, self-development is near impossible. Let's take assertiveness, for example. Without assertiveness, we aren't able to maintain boundaries, and you're going to begin to lose your self-reliance by being dependent on others' approval and acceptance. Basically, without assimilating at least a certain level of assertiveness in your life, you're going to risk becoming a walking doormat. And we don't want that. But aggression is one of those qualities that isn't understood very well. And we really need to fix this ASAP. Because it seems like we live in a world that just wants to write off aggression entirely as if it doesn't exist. And since so many people actually believe this, they think that having any sort of aggression is bad, and then they try to suppress it. See, I believe instead of promoting ideas that force people to feel like they need to suppress a natural human emotion, I think we should be promoting activities that allow people to express their feelings in a consenting, responsible, and cathartic way. Catharsis is the process of releasing and thereby providing relief from strong and repressed emotions. I also found this really good sentence about catharsis. And it says, catharsis is the purification and purgation of emotions through dramatic art, or it may be any extreme emotional state that results in renewal and restoration. Which I actually find really beautiful when you all put it together, because it's that intense release of something that's built up inside of you. And for some reason, people nowadays think it's healthier to suppress emotions like aggression or flat out ignore it than to actually release it. In psychology, the term is associated with Freudian psychoanalysts, who said that it relates to the expression of buried trauma, bringing it into consciousness and thereby releasing it permanently. However, I did see that other psychologists are trying to challenge its therapeutic usefulness, but for everyone who's saying that purging our emotions doesn't work, I'm here to say that it does, at least for me. When I wasn't releasing my aggressions in healthy ways, it would eventually explode onto someone who didn't normally deserve it. But through BDSM and Kink, I found a space to develop and release my aggression in a way that is healthy and causes no destruction to others in a malicious way. I've also learned that not all intentional behaviors that hurt others are aggressive behaviors. Sports is the easiest example of this. If a rugby player accidentally breaks another player's arm, the act isn't considered aggressive, but it's still quote-unquote aggressive behavior. But that's the cool thing about BDSM and kink, is that releasing our aggressions doesn't need to go that far. This is a good moment to remind you that any form of physical content can never be 100% safe. You know I'm going to say that there is no guarantee that someone won't make a mistake. But within BDSM and kink, aggression can be released in a non-physical or physical form. Take non-physical form. An example of this is releasing aggression through verbal communication. You can talk down, criticize, ridicule, whatever you want, as long as it's verbal. A physical example of releasing aggression that isn't hitting is like tearing apart a piece of clothing, because the clothing can easily become a physical representation of the emotion you want to release, with the help of imagination. Which leads me to I, and yeah, ring, 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 I is for imagination. Now, Google defines imagination as the faculty or action of forming new ideas or images or concepts of external objects not present to the senses. But when it comes to imagination and how it relates to us and BDSM and kink, I think Bob Proctor said it the best when he said imagination deals with the invisible side of your personality. I'm pretty sure he never thought he'd be quoted for a pro BDSM and kink supporter, but it's so true. Our souls want to experience everything they can. Deep inside our minds is something called the shadow self. Maybe you heard of it, maybe you haven't. But our shadow self is the one element within us that makes up the inner war we all have within ourselves and follows the ideologies of Sigmund Freud. Basically, our shadow self is all the versions of us that we don't want to identify with. At some point or another as we grow up, we have all shown pieces of ourselves to others that have been ridiculed, shamed, shunned, ignored, rejected, or punished for. So we all slowly learn to repress those pieces that just don't fit in to the back of our mind to prevent those instances from happening again. However, we all know at this point that suppressing pieces of ourselves or feelings comes at a steep price. Our shadow self holds our raw and untamed side. It doesn't know the difference between obtaining these feelings, emotions, and desires healthy or unhealthy. Our shadow self simply just wants to feel or act out those thoughts and impulses. And this is why it's so necessary to have a safe and controlled environment to do so. Now, doing shadow work doesn't always have to be in sex. It can be investigated in several ways like journaling or talk therapy. And you know, I'm a big believer in talk therapy. I was in it for 6 years with amazing therapists who helped me change my life around. But the beautiful part about therapy is there's just so many different avenues, and I didn't have to pick just one, and neither do you. As much as I love talking about my feelings, I also love feeling those feelings away. I love feeling those emotions and those feelings just be in my body and then leave my body. And BDSM and kink and overall Kinky Wellness gave me a whole other side of emotional release. But remember, our shadow self doesn't just hold the negative side. It also holds positive personality traits that have become minimized or invalidated as we've grown older. In either case, we need imagination to bring those sides out of us, and using our imagination through BDSM and kink can unveil your shadow self and many other personalities living inside your mind. And you can do this through creative and expressive ways. Deliberately reclaiming and then celebrating our shadow self shouldn't be some grandiose achievement. Although I do congratulate you, I believe it's something we should have always been congratulating in the first place. Seeing those other sides of us and then experiencing them in full force in a trusted environment allows that side of us to be fulfilled, seen, heard, felt, completed, and it allows it to move on. Basically, by transcending the other parts of you, you can integrate all the versions of yourself, allowing you to be whole. Imagination also lets us create feelings in a safe as possible and controlled environment, like fear. People love fear. That's why we have horror houses and horror movies and roller coasters, and each of these build and play off that feeling of fear. Like, I love fear. Like, I love going on a roller coaster. You know you're going to be okay, but it's still getting your blood pumping. And BDSM and kink is the same. So when it's done ethically, correctly, and consentingly, imagination can do all that from the comfort of your bedroom, as long as you know the basics. I don't know if it's just me, but I really think that people have lost touch with their imagination. Because it seems that people increasingly think imagination ends in our childhood, but we actually use it every day. Except nowadays, it seems that people use their imagination to think of the worst case scenarios. But seriously, when you leave your imagination unchecked, it starts to get reckless and it will move in unpredictable ways. We don't want to let our imagination run wild only to cause us anxiety. Our imagination has the potential to bring us joy and pleasure, not stress or nervousness. We need to learn to rein in our imagination and use it for more creative things. Imagination helped me get out of life problems. And honestly, I believe that there are a number of people who are in situations that they could easily fix themselves as well if they used a little imagination and creative problem solving. We've all been there. Imagination is a life skill, and we need to start working on it. As children, playing make-believe allowed us to practice social skills, work through difficult situations, and channel our creativity. And who's to say we can't use our imagination as adults to help those skills too? We shouldn't be living in a state of, oh, we're adults now, so let's stop learning or using our imagination. Because I promise you, the minute you stop using your imagination, it will turn against you. Imagination kind of has a will of its own. And you got to look after it kind of like a toddler. Because if you don't, it just gets into no good, you know? Which brings me to the third and final letter, which is the second A, and the second A stands for attention. Right off the bat, humans need attention. When we are given a specific type of attention when we need it, it can lead down a path of healing. Kat and I were doing a podcast about sex myths. I feel like a sex myth that might still be out there is that people that are in BDSM and Kink are sad, and that's why people are there. But honestly, I feel like it's more people looking for discipline. I know in my case, I didn't know how much I was seeking discipline. Discipline is not a type of attention that I can say I ever received very often. And it eventually got to the point that I didn't have it enough as a child that when I did, when someone did try to discipline me as I got older, I just retaliated back. And it wasn't until BDSM and Kink that I realized that what I was really missing out of my life was a whole lot of discipline. And sex was that creative outlet and fun outlet to get it with. And it was there that I was able to build out what discipline was in its true definition. And I was able to bring that type of discipline into other avenues of my life. And honestly, from what I can see, I think more people need some discipline in their life somewhere. They need that disciplined attention. And also, when did wanting someone's undivided attention become a bad thing? Seriously, isn't that something that we all dream of? The fairy tale ending of just you and your person, your soulmate? I know every single one of us has that G-rated version that we tell others. And then we have that R-rated version that we keep for ourselves. It's just our little personal dirty secret. It's human. I think everyone should get some undivided attention now and then because we all deserve to be seen. And when you're looking for different types of attention that you want to receive, it's helpful to know what the 5 love languages are. Because if you're a person who loves physical touch as your love language and you're not getting physical attention, it might feel that your relationship is falling apart when really it isn't. So just take a deep breath, okay? Because sometimes I can be like that. I think that one of my love languages is touch for sure. And just to recap here, the 5 love languages are 1, words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time, acts of service, and of course, physical touch. And whether or not you're in a relationship or single, you can still use power dynamic relationships to cultivate a scenario where you can obtain any one of those things with or without sex. Again, that's the thing about BDSM and Kink. The acts within the scenario don't always have to be sexual. It always comes down to your mind, or even simple touches like hugging or snuggling, like snuggle parties. Whatever happened to snuggle puddles, We need to bring back snuggle puddles. But no matter what type of attention you are doing or receiving, you always need to pay attention. Paying attention is what keeps partners as safe as possible. When you're playing, you need to catch any verbal or nonverbal cues or safe words. Paying attention will also help you analyze the level of aftercare that you're going to need to give at the end of the scene. But seriously, being alone or not getting enough attention is really bad for your health. And I hate to break it to you, ladies, but being alone has worse effects on us than it does on men. Scientists did a study on mice that have similar characteristics to human, And they took the male mice and the female mice and they separated them and they placed them in isolation. And it was proven that the male mice, that when they were left alone, they would just chill out. And when the female mice were left alone, they produced this hormone that is associated to stress. And crazy enough, there's studies out there that say that prolonged isolation is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes a day, just by being alone. And being subjective to feelings of loneliness can increase your risk of death anywhere from 26 to 45%. Some studies say that you literally can die 15 years earlier. BDSM and kink showed me the importance of getting the right attention. Like I said earlier, I didn't realize how much I needed discipline in my life, but sometimes we aren't raised with the attention that we need as little kids, which can lead us to seek it out in negative ways as we become adults. I let BDSM and kink give me a controlled and consenting space to get that attention that I needed in the moment. And I created scenarios that went far beyond just discipline. It was for encouragement, reassurance, praise, companionship, and so much more. Getting the right attention has a difference to break us down or build us up. And sex doesn't have to be a place where you get broken down. You can be built up within sex. Couples can certainly use BDSM and kink to ask for the exact attention that they need. It's evident that humans need a healthy outlet for aggression, imagination, and specialized attention. And kinky wellness matters. AIA makes a difference with how we are as humans. Without a place for aggression, imagination, and attention, life is boring, kind of dull. But let me know what you think. Do you agree that AIA is important? Do you think sexual healing is a thing? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But that's it for me. Thank you for listening why AIA is so important. Tune in next week, and as always, stay kinky. P.S. If you're new here or to the BDSM scene, I encourage you to check out my e-learning on the BDSM and kink basics at www.thepartition.life, where I make it easy to learn the basics of BDSM and kink.